Jack Voss was having a terrible day. His ship, the Iron Hound, had suffered a critical engine failure, forcing him to crash land on Velcheri Prime, a planet he knew almost nothing about except that it was home to a proud and powerful alien race, the Shari. Now, stuck in the capital city without a way off-world, Jack had only one goal: find parts, fix his ship, and get the hell out before he got tangled in local affairs. The streets of the city were unlike anything he had seen before. Towering structures of carved stone and glowing crystal loomed above him, their surfaces marked with intricate patterns. Market stalls lined the walkways, filled with alien merchants selling exotic goods, fabrics that shimmered like liquid silver, fruit that pulsed faintly as if alive, and weapons that looked both ancient and advanced. Jack adjusted his jacket, keeping his head low. As a human in an alien world, he already stood out enough. The last thing he wanted was trouble. He pushed through the crowded marketplace, trying to navigate the sea of feline-like Shari people, all of them taller and leaner than him, their fur-covered tails swaying gracefully as they walked. He was focused on a vendor selling what looked like fuel cells when it happened. One wrong step. A sharp yelp split the air. Before Jack could react, something heavy slammed into him, sending him crashing onto the hard stone street. Pain exploded across his back, but before he could get up, a furious voice hissed above him. "You dare!" Jack blinked up at his attacker. The woman standing over him was breathtaking in the most dangerous way possible. She was tall, easily a head taller than him, with deep bronze skin and piercing amber eyes that glowed with fury. Midnight black hair cascaded down her back, and two feline ears twitched atop her head. But what caught his attention most was the long, sleek tail behind her, the one he had just stepped on. Oh no. But Jack started, but she cut him off. "You stepped on my tail," she growled, eyes narrowing. Around them, a hushed silence had fallen over the marketplace. Shari onlookers stared, their expressions ranging from shock to amusement. Some muttered in their alien tongue, while others simply gawked. Jack held up his hands. "Look, lady, it was an accident, all right. I wasn't looking where I was going." "Silence, human," she snapped. Her tail lashed behind her, betraying her barely contained rage. "You insult me before my people, in my own city." Jack had been in enough bar fights to recognize danger when he saw it. This woman wasn't just angry, she was ready to tear him apart. But before he could think of a way to talk himself out of trouble, a deep voice interrupted. "Princess Sihara, is there a problem?" Jack stiffened. "Princess." A group of armored Shari guards approached, their weapons gleaming under the marketplace lights. The one in the lead, a massive warrior with dark gray fur and a jagged scar over one eye, glared at Jack as if deciding whether to kill him on the spot. Sihara pointed at Jack, her expression cold and unreadable. "This human stepped on my tail." The warrior's face darkened. "Then he has broken sacred law." Jack exhaled sharply. "Oh, come on. I said it was an accident. It does not matter." The guard turned to Sihara, bowing his head. "The law is clear. He must answer for his crime." Jack had no idea what that meant, but it sounded bad. Really bad. He looked around for an escape route, but the guards were already surrounding him. The crowd whispered in excitement, as if expecting some kind of brutal punishment. Sihara stared at Jack, her amber eyes unreadable. Then she spoke, her voice calm but full of hidden menace. "He is mine now." Jack blinked. "Wait, what?" Before he could protest, the guards seized him, dragging him toward the towering palace in the distance. The crowd cheered. Jack had no idea what he had just gotten himself into, but one thing was certain. His day had just gone from bad to catastrophically worse. Jack Voss had been in trouble before. Bar fights, smuggling mishaps, even a close call with a bounty hunter once. But this was something else entirely. He was being dragged through the grand halls of the Shari Palace, his arms held in a tight grip by two massive guards who looked like they could snap him in half without breaking a sweat. He twisted his neck to look at Princess Sihara, who walked ahead of him with the confidence of a warrior and the grace of royalty. Her long black hair flowed behind her, and her tail flicked with irritation. Jack had no idea what stepping on her tail really meant, but judging by the looks the palace staff were giving him, wide eyes, whispered gasps, it was bad. They entered a vast chamber, its walls carved with glowing symbols, the ceiling high enough to make Jack feel small. At the center of the room sat a semicircle of Shari elders, their fur streaked with silver, their golden eyes sharp with wisdom. One of them, a tall, regal-looking woman draped in crimson robes, stood as Sihara approached. "Daughter," the elder spoke, her voice steady but curious. "Explain why you bring this human before us." Jack blinked. "Daughter. Oh, great." So not only had he stepped on a princess's tail, but her mother was watching. Sihara bowed her head slightly. "This human stepped on my tail before the eyes of our people." The room went dead silent. Then, murmurs spread through the crowd like wildfire. Some of the elders frowned. Others looked downright amused. The elder woman, who Jack now realized was the queen, studied him with interest. "Is this true, human?" Jack sighed. "Look, Your Highness, it was an accident. I didn't mean to offend anyone." The queen exchanged glances with the elders, then let out a soft chuckle. "Perhaps he truly does not know." Sihara's tail twitched. "Then I will explain." She turned to Jack, her amber eyes locking onto his. "Among the Shari, a tail is not just a body part. It is a symbol of our honor, our pride, and our spirit. To step on a Shari's tail, especially that of royalty, is an act of claiming, a declaration of ownership." Jack's stomach dropped. "Wait, what?" One of the elders chuckled. "In simple terms, human, you have just proposed marriage to Princess Sihara." Jack's brain short-circuited. He stared at the queen, at the elders, and finally at Sihara, who did not look amused in the slightest. No, hold on." He shook his head. "I didn't propose. It was an accident. You can't seriously." "The law is clear," one of the elders interrupted. "Once a Shari's tail has been stepped on in such a way, there are only two choices. The offender must either follow through with the claim and marry, or face an honored duel to the death." Jack froze. "You're joking." No one laughed. His heart pounded. This was insane. One second, he was trying to fix his ship, and the next, he was being told to either marry an alien princess or fight to the death. He glanced at Sihara, hoping she'd call this off, but she simply crossed her arms. "An accident or not, you have dishonored me," she said firmly. "I will not be shamed before my people." Jack exhaled sharply. "So what happens now?" The queen smiled. "You will be given 3 days to prepare. Then the trials shall begin. If you prove yourself worthy, the union shall proceed. If you fail, well, you won't have to worry about marriage, human." Jack groaned. He hated this planet already. Jack Voss sat on the stone bench in the dimly lit palace chamber, rubbing his face with both hands. 3 days. That was all the time he had before some ridiculous alien trials decided his fate. Marriage to a fierce warrior princess or death in an honor duel. And knowing his luck, neither option sounded great. "Think, Jack, think," he muttered. There had to be a way out of this mess. The chamber door creaked open, and a familiar voice whispered, "You look like a man who could use an escape plan." Jack's head shot up to see Finric, a Shari rogue he had met earlier in the marketplace. Unlike the other Shari, who carried themselves with warrior pride, Finric had the look of a troublemaker. His silver fur was slightly unkempt, and a mischievous grin tugged at his lips. He wore dark, loose-fitting clothes, perfect for sneaking around unnoticed. Jack narrowed his eyes. "You got a way out of here." Finric's tail flicked playfully. "Depends. You got anything valuable?" Jack sighed. I've got my ship. Well, what's left of it? Finrick's ears perked up. The human ship, huh? Now that's interesting. Tell you what, I'll get you out of here, no charge. Consider it a favor. Jack frowned. Nobody does favors for free. Finrick smirked. True, but let's just say I enjoy causing a little chaos. Jack wasn't sure if he could trust this guy, but what choice did he have? All right, what's the plan? Finrick leaned in. The palace is heavily guarded, but there's an old passage beneath the east wing. Leads straight to the lower city. Problem is, it's sealed. Only the royal family can open it. Jack groaned. Great, so we need a royal's handprint or something. Or something, Finrick said with a sly grin. Jack didn't like that look. Before he could argue, the door swung open again. This time, it was Ava Ortega, Jack's longtime friend and engineer. She had somehow talked her way into the palace and now stood with her arms crossed, looking unimpressed. What the hell did you do this time, Jack? She asked. Jack sighed in relief. Ava, thank the stars. I, might have accidentally proposed to an alien princess. Ava blinked. You what? Long story. We don't have time. Jack stood. This guy says he can get us out of here. Ava gave Finrick a once-over. And you trust him? Jack shrugged. Not really, but I trust my chances even less if I stay here. Finrick placed a hand over his heart. I'm offended. I'm very trustworthy. Ava rolled her eyes. Fine. What's the plan? Before Finrick could answer, the chamber door swung open again, this time with force. Princess Sahara strode in, her golden eyes sharp as a blade. Jack tensed. Busted. Sahara's gaze swept over the group, landing on Finrick. I should have known you would be involved, she said coldly. Finrick grinned. Princess, lovely to see you. We were just discussing palace architecture. Sahara ignored him and focused on Jack. You think you can escape? Jack straightened. If you just let me go, we wouldn't have to do this. Sahara's tail flicked in irritation. The law is the law, human. If you run, you will be hunted. And if you are caught, I will have no choice but to punish you myself. Jack swallowed. Something about the way she said that made his skin prickle. Sahara stepped closer. You have 3 days. Whether you like it or not, you will face the trials. If you survive, then we will see if you are worthy. Jack locked eyes with her. There was no escape. Not yet. Jack Voss stood in the middle of the massive arena, sweat dripping down his face. Thousands of Shari filled the towering stands above, their feline eyes gleaming with anticipation. The air hummed with excitement, the crowd eager to see whether this outworlder would prove himself or perish trying. The arena floor was made of smooth, sun-heated stone, surrounded by towering pillars carved with ancient symbols. At the far end of the arena, seated on a raised platform, was Princess Suhara, watching him with those fierce golden eyes. Beside her sat Queen Azraya, her expression unreadable. Jack clenched his fists. 3 days had passed since the whole mess began, and now the trials were here. No more running, no more stalling. If he wanted to live, he had to win. A deep voice echoed across the arena. First trial, the Gauntlet of Beasts. Jack barely had time to process that before the heavy gates in front of him groaned open. From the shadows emerged a creature that could only be described as a nightmare with claws. It was a Vakresh, a beast he had only heard about in drunken spaceport tales. 4 muscular legs, jagged black scales, and 2 pairs of gleaming red eyes. Its massive jaws dripped with venom, and its barbed tail twitched as it stalked forward. Jack exhaled sharply. Oh, come on. This is the first trial. The crowd roared as the beast charged. Jack barely had time to react before it lunged, its claws slamming into the stone where he had been standing a second ago. He rolled to the side, barely dodging, but the Vakresh was fast, unnaturally fast. It whirled, its tail whipping toward him. Jack ducked. The tail whooshed just inches above his head, slamming into a pillar and shattering stone like it was made of glass. Jack's mind raced. No way I can fight this thing head-on. He needed a plan. Then he spotted something. The exposed joints of the creature's legs, where the thick armor-like scales didn't fully cover. "All right, big guy," Jack muttered. "Let's see if you have a weak spot." The Vakresh lunged again. This time, instead of dodging, Jack ran straight toward it. The beast reared back in surprise, just the opening Jack needed. He slid underneath its massive frame, grabbing a broken piece of stone from the ground. With all his strength, he jammed the sharp rock into the joint of its front leg. The Vakresh let out an ear-splitting roar of pain. It staggered, trying to shake him off, but Jack wasn't done. He scrambled onto its back and grabbed hold of one of the jagged spines running down its neck. The crowd gasped as Jack yanked the spine backward, forcing the beast's head up. The Vakresh howled in pain, its body thrashing violently. Jack gritted his teeth, using every ounce of strength to steer the creature toward one of the pillars. At the last second, he jumped off. The Vakresh crashed headfirst into the pillar with a sickening crack. It let out a final shudder before collapsing, motionless. Silence filled the arena. Then the crowd erupted into cheers. Jack lay on the hot stone floor, gasping for breath. He couldn't believe it. He had actually won. Above him, Sahara rose to her feet, her tail flicking with what might have been admiration. "The Outworlder has survived the first trial," she declared, her voice carrying across the arena. "Let us see if he can handle the next." Jack groaned. "There's more." Sahara smirked. Of course, this was only the beginning. Jack closed his eyes. He really hated this planet. Jack Voss barely had time to recover from fighting the Vakresh before the second trial was announced. His arms ached, his breath came in ragged gasps, and his shirt was torn from the beast's claws. But the roaring crowd didn't care. From her seat on the royal platform, Princess Sahara watched him closely. Jack wasn't sure if she was impressed or just waiting for him to die. Either way, he was too exhausted to care. A deep voice boomed across the arena. Second trial. The Dance of Blades. Jack wiped sweat from his brow. That doesn't sound good. The gates on the opposite side of the arena creaked open, and out stepped a towering Shari warrior clad in dark battle armor. His fur was a deep shade of bronze, his eyes like burning coals. He carried 2 curved blades, each one gleaming under the sun. The crowd erupted in cheers. Jack swallowed hard as Commander Varrock stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate. Unlike the beast from before, this opponent wasn't just about brute strength. He was fast, precise, and, judging by the way the crowd chanted his name, a seasoned warrior. Jack had no weapons, no armor, just his tired body and whatever scraps of wit he had left. Varrock tilted his head. "You have no blade." Jack forced a grin. "Figured I'd give you a handicap." The warrior let out a low chuckle. Bold words. "Let us see if your skill matches your tongue." Without warning, Varrock charged. Jack barely had time to dodge as the first blade sliced through the air, where his throat had been a second ago. He rolled to the side, but Varrock was already moving, his second sword whipping toward Jack's ribs. Jack threw himself backward, the blade missing him by a hair. He felt the wind of the strike brush against his skin. The crowd cheered louder. Varrock didn't stop. He pressed forward, each swing of his blade so fast Jack could barely keep up. He was toying with him. Jack dodged another strike, but he knew he couldn't keep this up forever. His body was slowing down. His luck wouldn't hold much longer. "Think, Jack. You need a weapon." His eyes darted across the arena floor. That's when he saw it, a broken Vakresh spine, still sharp as a dagger, lying near the beast's corpse. Varrock lunged again. Jack dropped low and rolled toward the spine. His fingers wrapped around the rough surface just as Verroc's blade came down. Jack twisted, bringing up the jagged spine just in time. Clang! Verroc's blade met the makeshift weapon, sparks flying. The warrior's eyes narrowed in surprise. Jack didn't wait. He thrust the spine forward, aiming for Verroc's side. The warrior twisted, dodging the blow, but Jack followed up with a desperate kick to the knee. Verroc stumbled. The crowd gasped. Jack knew he had to act fast. He spun, slashing with the spine. Verroc barely dodged, but Jack pressed forward, striking again and again. Verroc blocked each attack, but now Jack had control. For the first time, the seasoned warrior was on the defensive. Jack faked a strike to the right, then pivoted sharply, his knee slamming into Verroc's ribs. The warrior grunted, stumbling back. Jack didn't hesitate. He grabbed Verroc's wrist and twisted. The warrior's blade flew from his grip and clattered to the ground. Silence fell over the arena. Verroc stared at Jack, then let out a low chuckle. "I yield," he said. The crowd exploded with cheers. Jack dropped the Vakresh spine, his chest rising and falling with each heavy breath. He had won. Above him, Sahara's golden eyes held something new, something like respect. She stood. The human has passed the second trial. Jack groaned. "Please tell me that was the last one." Sahara smirked. "One more remains." Jack closed his eyes. "Of course there's one more." Jack Voss stood in the center of the arena, his muscles aching, his breath ragged. He had fought a monstrous Vakresh and survived. He had bested Commander Verroc, one of the fiercest warriors in the kingdom. And now, as he looked up at Princess Sahara, he couldn't help but wonder what fresh nightmare was next. The crowd had fallen into an expectant hush, waiting for the final trial to be revealed. Jack wiped the sweat from his brow and muttered under his breath, "Please tell me it's something easy, like a game of chess." Sahara stepped forward, her golden eyes gleaming with something Jack couldn't quite place. Amusement, curiosity. "For the third and final trial," she announced, "you will face the trial of judgment." Jack blinked. "Wait, what?" The crowd murmured in excitement. Queen Azraya, who had watched everything in silence until now, finally spoke. Her voice was deep and commanding. "A warrior may win with strength and skill, but a true leader must have wisdom. The final trial will test your mind, human. If you pass, you will have earned your place. If you fail, you will forfeit everything." Jack's stomach twisted. He had been prepared for another brutal fight, another round of dodging death. But now, he had no idea what to expect. Sahara motioned, and two Shari attendants approached, carrying a large black bowl filled with polished stones, some white, some black. They set it down in front of Jack. Sahara's tail flicked as she explained, "Before you are two types of stones. You may take as many as you like, but at the end, you must distribute them among 3 bowls, one for yourself, one for the people, and one for the throne. Choose wisely. If the balance is wrong, you fail." Jack frowned. "That's it. Pick some stones and put them in bowls." Sahara smirked. "If it is so simple, then you should have no problem." Jack's gut told him otherwise. He crouched down and examined the stones. The white stones felt smooth and light in his palm. The black stones were heavier, rougher. He glanced up. "What do they mean?" Sahara's ears twitched in approval. "That is for you to decide." Jack cursed under his breath. Great. A riddle with no rules. He studied the 3 bowls. Himself, the people, the throne. If he took too many stones for himself, he might seem greedy. If he gave too much to the throne, he could be seen as a servant. And if he gave too little to the people, they might resent him. He closed his eyes, thinking. The crowd murmured as he picked up 2 black stones and 3 white ones. He placed 1 black stone in the throne's bowl, 1 in the people's, and kept none for himself. The remaining 3 white stones he split between the people and the throne, giving the people an extra one. When he stepped back, the arena fell silent. Sahara studied his choice, her expression unreadable. Then she turned to her mother. Queen Azraya's lips curled into a slight smile. Interesting. Jack swallowed. So, did I pass? The queen nodded. You have given strength to the people and the throne, yet taken none for yourself. You understand that power must be shared, not hoarded. You have passed. The crowd erupted into cheers. Jack exhaled in relief. He had done it. He had won the trials. Sahara stepped forward. Well done, human. Jack grinned. So, does this mean I'm free to go? Sahara smirked. Not quite. You have won the right to stay. But now, we must talk about the wedding. Jack groaned. Of course we do. The crowd laughed. The princess had chosen well. Jack Voss sat in a lavish shari dressing chamber, staring at his reflection in a polished bronze mirror. He looked ridiculous. The deep blue ceremonial robe draped over his shoulders was embroidered with golden threads, its fabric far too silky for his liking. Around his waist was a heavy silver sash, and on his forehead, attendants had placed a delicate circlet of woven crystal. He looked like some kind of alien prince, and he hated it. The door slid open, and Commander Verak stepped in, his usual stern face softened with amusement. You wear the royal attire well, Outworlder. Jack groaned, tugging at the sash. This isn't happening. There has to be a way out. Verak smirked. You won the trials. That means you have won Princess Sahara's hand. The wedding is law. Jack ran a hand down his face. I didn't sign up for this. I thought winning meant I got to live, not get married to a woman whose tail I accidentally stepped on. Verak crossed his arms. Would you rather have died in the arena? Jack sighed. He had barely survived the first 2 trials, and the last one had nearly melted his brain. Now, instead of freedom, he was about to be married to an alien princess. Before Jack could complain further, the door opened again, and Princess Sahara strode in, looking absolutely regal in a flowing crimson gown. The golden bangles on her wrists jingled lightly as she moved, her feline eyes locking onto him with an unreadable expression. Jack swallowed. He had to admit, she was stunning. The delicate spots on her cheeks, the way her silver-white hair shimmered in the light. If she wasn't the reason for his current predicament, he might have been more appreciative. Sahara tilted her head. You look uncomfortable. Jack scoffed. I feel like a decorated gift. Her tail flicked in amusement. Good. That means you're ready. Jack groaned. Sahara, listen. Do we really have to go through with this? She raised an elegant brow. You won. You accepted the trials. Do you not respect our customs? Jack hesitated. He had spent the last few days proving himself to the Shari, fighting for his survival, gaining their respect. If he refused now, he'd lose everything. The goodwill of the people, the queen's favor, and probably his life. His shoulders slumped. Fine. But I want it on record that I never wanted to get married like this. Sahara smirked. Duly noted. Then, before Jack could say another word, the palace shook with a thunderous explosion. The walls trembled. The mirror cracked. A distant alarm blared. Verak's ears perked up, and his hand immediately went to the sword at his hip. An attack. Sahara's expression darkened. Who would dare? Jack, relieved for the sudden interruption, rushed to the window. Outside, in the Shari sky, massive black ships loomed over the palace. Bright energy bolts rained down, striking the outer walls and sending debris flying. Jack's stomach twisted. I don't think your wedding's gonna happen today, princess. Verak growled. It's the Draken clans. They've come for war. Sahara's golden eyes blazed with fury. Then they have chosen their death. She turned to Jack. I hope you weren't too eager to leave, human, because now you're going to war. Jack sighed. rubbing his temples. You know what? At this point, why not? The battle for the Shari kingdom had begun. The Shari palace shook as another explosion rocked its foundation. Jack Voss stumbled forward, catching himself against a marble pillar as debris rained down from above. The air was thick with smoke, the distant screams of warriors and civilians alike filling the corridors. "This is bad. This is really bad," Jack muttered, coughing as dust clogged his throat. Commander Varrock was already moving. His bronze-furred form was a blur as he barked orders to nearby guards. "Defend the queen. Secure the inner gates. Keep the Draken filth from advancing any further." Jack turned to Princess Sihara, who stood at the center of the chaos, her crimson gown swirling as she drew her curved Shari blade from its sheath. The fury in her golden eyes was like a storm waiting to break. "You," she said, pointing at Jack. "Come with me." Jack blinked. "Come with you." "Sihara, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm not exactly warrior material." Sihara didn't slow her pace as she grabbed his wrist and dragged him through the crumbling palace halls. "You survived the trials. You fought Varrock and lived. You have earned your place among us. Now prove it." Jack sighed. "I knew you were going to say something like that." They emerged onto a massive balcony overlooking the palace courtyard. What Jack saw made his stomach drop. The Draken clans had breached the outer gates. Hundreds of reptilian warriors with dark, armored scales and glowing red eyes stormed through, their weapons pulsing with energy. Shari defenders met them with fierce resistance, but the Draken were relentless, their numbers overwhelming. Jack gritted his teeth. "You guys have a plan for this, right?" Sihara nodded. "We must activate the Sci-fi cannons, our strongest defenses, but the control tower is across the battlefield." Jack exhaled slowly. "Of course it is." Varrock appeared beside them, blood already staining his armor. "We are being pushed back. If we do not activate the cannon soon, the palace will fall." Sihara looked at Jack. "You will come with me." Jack threw up his hands. "Why me?" Sihara smirked. "Because you are my betrothed, and it is time you fight for your people." Jack groaned but didn't argue. His choices were limited. Either run and get killed, or stick with the alien princess who actually knew what she was doing. "Fine," he muttered. "But if I die, I'm haunting you." Sihara gave a sharp nod, then leaped from the balcony onto the battlefield below. Jack watched her land gracefully, cutting through Draken warriors like a whirlwind of silver and crimson. Varrock clapped a heavy hand on Jack's shoulder. "No time for hesitation, Outworlder." Jack gritted his teeth. Then, before he could overthink it, he jumped. His landing was far less graceful. He stumbled, rolled, and nearly face-planted. But he was alive. A Draken warrior charged him immediately, swinging a plasma-forged axe. Jack panicked. He had no weapon, no armor, no training. But then, instinct took over. He ducked under the swing, grabbed a broken Shari spear from the ground, and jammed the blunt end into the Draken's stomach. The warrior staggered back, hissing in pain. Jack didn't stop. He swung the spear like a bat, cracking it against the Draken's jaw. The warrior crumpled. Jack blinked. "Holy crap, I actually won that fight." Sihara's voice cut through the chaos. "Jack, move." Jack turned just in time to see another Draken lunging at him. Before he could react, Sihara's blade sliced through the enemy's throat. Jack exhaled shakily. "Yeah, thanks." She smirked. "Keep up." Together, they fought through the battlefield, dodging plasma fire, leaping over fallen warriors, and cutting a path toward the control tower. The fate of the Shari kingdom now rested on one last desperate move. Jack had no idea how this day could get any crazier. Then he heard a deafening roar. A Draken war beast, a monstrous armored creature with fiery eyes and razor-sharp tusks, burst through the palace gates. Jack paled. "Oh, come on." Sihara tightened her grip on her blade. Stay close, human. Jack swallowed hard. This was going to be the fight of his life. The Draken war beast charged, its enormous bulk shaking the battlefield. Its armored hide gleamed under the burning sky, massive tusks dripping with molten energy. Warriors, both Shari and Draken, scrambled out of its path, but Jack Voss stood frozen in place. "This thing is way too big," Jack yelled. "How do we even stop it?" Sahara tightened her grip on her blade, her golden eyes narrowing. "With precision." Jack scoffed. "Great. Got any of that lying around?" Before she could answer, Varrock roared and charged forward, leaping onto the beast's back. He drove his blade into its armor, but the creature barely flinched. With a violent shake, it threw him off, sending the seasoned warrior crashing into the rubble. Jack winced. "Yeah, that's not gonna work." Sahara's tail flicked in frustration. "We need the Sci-fi cannons. The tower is within reach, but we must hold this beast back." Jack looked up at the tallest spire in the palace, the control tower. If they reached it, they could activate the kingdom's most powerful defense system. But right now, a rampaging war beast and an army of bloodthirsty Drakens stood in their way. Jack groaned. "Fine. I'll handle the tower. You handle the giant death monster." Sahara smirked. "Try not to die, human." Jack bolted, dodging energy blasts and weaving through collapsing pillars. He sprinted toward the tower. His heart pounded as he climbed a crumbling staircase, each step shaking beneath him. Behind him, Sahara and Varrock engaged the war beast. Sahara slashed at its legs, forcing it to stumble. Varrock, despite his injuries, hurled a spear into its eye, making it bellow in rage. Jack had no time to watch. Reaching the control room, he slammed his hand against the console. The screen flared to life, displaying ancient Shari symbols. "Oh, come on," Jack groaned. "Why isn't there a giant red button that says, 'Fire the big guns'?" A deep snarl echoed from behind him. Jack turned. A Draken warlord, bigger, meaner, and uglier than the others, stood in the doorway, a plasma sword crackling in his grip. Jack's stomach dropped. Of course you're here." The Draken sneered. "You are no warrior. You are nothing." Jack sighed. Yeah. Let's just get this over with." The warlord lunged. Jack barely dodged the glowing blade, rolling across the floor. He grabbed the nearest thing he could find, a heavy metal pipe, and swung wildly. The Draken blocked it with ease, sending Jack skidding backward. Jack gritted his teeth. "I do not have time for this." His eyes darted to the control panel. An idea sparked. The Draken lunged again. This time, Jack didn't dodge. Instead, he grabbed a live energy cable from the wall, and at the last second, jammed it against the warlord's chest. Sparks exploded. The Draken screamed, his body convulsing violently before collapsing in a smoking heap. Jack exhaled. Never underestimate human problem-solving, buddy. He turned back to the console, frantically pressing buttons. The screen flickered. A warning blared through the palace. Then, boom! The Sci-fi cannons activated, unleashing massive golden beams of destruction. The Draken ships in the sky exploded, their forces below scattered in chaos. The war beast, already weakened, stumbled as a cannon blast hit it square in the chest, sending it crashing to the ground. The battlefield fell silent. Jack stumbled out of the tower, panting. He saw Sahara standing over the fallen beast, her sword dripping with its black blood. The Draken army was in full retreat. The battle was over. Jack let out a relieved laugh. "Did we just win?" Sahara smirked. "Yes. Thanks to you." Varrock, limping but alive, grunted. "Not bad. Outworlder." Jack grinned. "So does this mean I finally get to go home?" Sahara's expression didn't change. "No." Jack blinked. "Wait, what?" Sahara stepped forward, tail swishing. "You have fought for our people. You have won the trials. You have saved our kingdom. Jack raised a hand. I don't like where this is going. Sahara grabbed his wrist, pulling him close. You are Shari now. Jack paled. Wait. Hold on. We can talk about this. Before he could protest, Queen Azraya's voice echoed through the palace. Prepare for the royal wedding. Jack groaned loudly, while the Shari cheered in triumph. He had saved the kingdom, but now he was trapped forever as the husband of an alien princess. His adventure wasn't ending. It was just beginning.